We were discussing this portion that I'm going to ask you right now before we started taping this segment. There's going to be changes in the Senate involved in all this. Do you have any anticipation of what it may look like, the final proposal, after the Senate gets their hands on it?
Well, I think, given the outcry in town halls that a number of my Republican colleagues have experienced, that I suspect there'll be changes in Medicaid. I can't predict what they might be. Possibly SNAP. You know, United States senators represent an entire state, and so they look at it from a bit of a different perspective. Whether or not they do something to reduce the added debt to the country remains to be seen, but I know a number of senators have articulated that concern. So it certainly will make changes. Speaker Johnson had a very fragile majority. It passed by one vote. And so with the changes that the Senate will make in the next 4 to 6 weeks when they send it back to the House, whether or not that fragile coalition can be kept intact remains to be seen based upon what changes the Senate may make, and we'll see in the next 4 to 6 weeks.
Like everything, some people want this, some people do not want this. Some say this is not what we ended up voting for, and this is exactly what we need. What is your message to those on both sides of that fence?
Well, I think that the Americans that voted to re-elect President Trump were focused on the economy and inflation. And, you know, with the tariff war, the economy has been up and down, the stock market, the bond market, people's savings. And I don't think that they, and the president said it different times, that it wouldn't cut health care and it wouldn't cut Social Security. And this will have impacts on both of those areas. And so I think that there's been a bit of overreach, but I think it also comes when you promise everything and understand that those promises are inconsistent with each other. And that's the dilemma I think my colleagues who put together this big something, or rather whatever you might want to call it, are faced with, because there are inconsistencies, and the reconciliation bill points out those inconsistencies.
Use your experience and look into that mythical crystal ball that you're holding in your hand. What's the outcome of all this?
Well, before our August break, Congress will have to come together. And by the way, the debt ceiling that needs to be raised is included in this reconciliation package. So the Senate will make the compromises necessary to get the votes in their House. They'll send it over if they have the votes, and I believe they will be able to do that. And then the question is will the House be able to pass it without Democratic support? Under the current construct, I don't think they're going to have that support. And then we may meet another deadline, and Congress tends to operate by deadlines, sadly. With the mandatory ceiling on our debt approaching, we're going to have to address that. That could be done separately if, in fact, they're unable to come across with the votes to pass this package.
We just spent a long time talking about what's happening in Washington. I want to change topics real quickly before we let you go and bring up the really sad situation that happened last weekend in Boulder, Colorado. A man using a flamethrower that's tied to the Israeli-Palestine conflict going on. What are your initial thoughts on that?
That's a very sad moment. We've had other incidences that reflect the anti-Semitism in this country that has increased by over 349% reported by the Anti-Defamation League in the last 5 years. In other words, the incidences of attacks of various kinds. We've seen shootings, sadly. It reflects that anti-Semitism has increased by over 300% in 5 years, and if you go back 10 years, it's increased by over 10,000 times. So it's a real I think understanding that we as Americans need to do that this politics of division, this politics of fear, these politics of hate, have to be addressed in America. We need to come together and remember that as Americans, we share far more in common that is established in our Constitution: the freedom of speech, the freedom of assembly, the freedom of worship, the freedoms that we cherish as Americans, freedom of press. And when people attack people expressing their views in some of the most violent ways possible, it's not the American way, and we need to really take a step back, and Democrats and Republicans need to work together. We need to deal with the racism that exists in this country along with anti-Semitism, and we're not, I think, doing enough to focus on that, frankly.
I'm going to end this conversation the same way I do with all my interviewees, people who are out there who may have voted for you last time around, may have not. What's your message to people? Is there anything else you want to get out there?
Yes. This is a seminal moment, I believe, that we are living in today in American and world history. It's a challenging time, and we've lived through these difficult moments. 249 years now. Next year will be the 250th anniversary of the oldest democracy in the world, an experiment on representative government. And, we've had various time periods where it's been challenging to keep our democracy together, and we're in one of those time periods now. And so therefore I think Americans need to lower the rhetoric, increase the civility on how we listen to one another and how we approach one another. And a lot of the challenges, I think, it comes from social media and podcasts that play to the extremes and inflame people. There always have been the politics of hope and the politics of fear, and they can both be successful. Let's focus on the politics of hope, realizing that we are the greatest nation in the world, but we are when we remember the better angels in all of us and we work together.
Congressman Jim Costa, thank you for taking the time on Sunday Morning Matters. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Always good to be on.
And you can catch my interview with Congressmember Jim Costa once again.